The story starts with the assassination of the worst duke. This is our protagonist, his name is Signature Jagger. The duke was pleading for his life. He asked Sig what he wanted. Sig's chilling response was that he wanted the duke's neck, and without hesitation, he severed the duke's head. Sig watched as the flames consumed the place. As he observed the destruction, he retrieved an item in his pocket, possibly belonging to the late duke, along with a cigarette. Tossing the cigarette into the fire, he walked away. Leaving behind the palace of the duke, Sig embarked on his next mission. In the forest, he found himself exhausted, panting for breath. Seeking refuge, he leapt behind a tree, contemplating the need to call for reinforcements once he completed his task and reported the situation. Sig had no desire to confront whatever was pursuing him. Suddenly, the menacing figure materialized before him, launching a swift attack. However, Sig managed to evade the strike by swiftly bending down. After narrowly escaping the attack, Sig glanced at the tree behind him, realizing that a single swing from his adversary had sliced it in two. It was evident that his opponent possessed tremendous power. As the dust settled, the figure revealed itself to be an orc. The orc bellowed and resumed its assault. Sig pondered how this creature resembled anything but a wild animal. He deduced that the orc's sword must be the source of its otherworldly aura and uncontrollable movements. It seemed to be one of those accursed demonic swords. Taking a defensive stance, the orc emanated a purple aura from its sword. Sig anticipated the impending strike as the orc prepared to attack with a formidable swing. The orc swung his sword, but it didn't hit Sig. He followed it with another strike. However, Sig skillfully evaded the blow, causing the sword to cleave through the surrounding trees instead. Sig wondered if the orc was attempting to demonstrate the true nature of its demonic blade. Undeterred, the orc readied itself for another assault, launching consecutive strikes at Sig. Yet, Sig's agility allowed him to effortlessly evade each attack. As the severed logs flew through the air, Sig utilized them as footholds, wielding his sword and swiftly striking the orc's neck. The force of the blow propelled Sig to the orc's rear. However, to Sig's dismay, he realized that the strike had been shallow, and the orc still stood. Facing the monster once again, Sig assessed his sword and concluded that the endeavor was not worth the effort. He cursed the old man who had assigned him this task, vowing to demand double the payment upon his return. Sig firmly grasped his sword with both hands as the orc prepared for an overhead slash. The orc's sword emitted a purple aura, while Sig's sword radiated a golden aura. They clashed, their weapons meeting in a powerful parry. In the next instant, Sig's weapon cracked under the force of the clash. Evading the orc's sword as it sliced through the air, Sig counterattacked with his broken sword, aiming for the orc's neck. With a final strike, the orc's head fell to the ground, separated from its body by Sig's shattered blade. Exhausted, Sig sat down on the cut tree, contemplating his mortality. He mused, I feel as if death is upon me. My sword is beyond repair, and all that remains is this cursed demonic sword of the orc." Abruptly, a voice resounded, beckoning Sig to come closer. Sig recognized it as the voice of the demonic sword. The sword's voice echoed, promising to bestow upon him the power to vanquish anything and fulfill all his resentments. Sig struggled, unable to control his own body, as he succumbed to the sword's influence. He pleaded, "I can't. Please, stop. If I take up that magic sword, I'll end up just like that lifeless orc over there. Damn it, I can't control my body." Sig found himself standing before the sword, his hand reaching out instinctively. He grasped the sword and pulled it from the ground, causing a burst of purple aura. However, Sig felt perplexed as nothing extraordinary occurred. He held the sword, but the purple aura dissipated. Sig made his way to a nearby lake. The sword continued to speak, urgently calling out to him. However, Sig paid no attention and unceremoniously threw the sword into the water, creating a splash. Yawning, he turned to leave. The sword sank beneath the water's surface. Back in the city, Sig let out a sigh as he contemplated the old man's words. He recalled the old man's skepticism when he mentioned the orc wielding a demonic sword, demanding evidence and accusing Sig of lying. Despite the old man's doubts, Sig received the reward for completing the quest. Sig thought to himself, cursing the old man for being so stingy. With the meager reward, he couldn't even afford to buy a new sword. Suddenly, a girl appeared before him, arms folded and seemingly sulking. Sig brushed her off, assuming she was a lost child. However, to his surprise, the girl grabbed his wrist. She expressed her disbelief, remarking on his audacity to abandon his owner. Sig replied dismissively, claiming she had mistaken him for someone else. He shook his hand, trying to free himself from the girl's grip, and announced his intention to leave. Enraged, the girl raised her voice, shouting at him for pretending not to know her after touching her body inappropriately. Sig was taken aback, exclaiming, "What kind of nonsense is this?" He turned towards the girl, his anger evident. The commotion caught the attention of the surrounding crowd, who eagerly joined in, asking about the alleged inappropriate touching. Sig confronted the girl, demanding an explanation for her actions towards him. In response, the girl stated that it was what this queen wanted to convey, berating him for callously casting her into the lake without a second thought. Suddenly, Sig was stunned, realizing that the girl before him was the very sword he had thrown into the lake. The girl, with her arms still folded, confirmed his suspicion, declaring herself to be the demonic sword, Minerva. The sword amplified the user's resentment, granting immense power and regeneration, but also driving the user to madness with ever-increasing resentment. Minerva asserted, "That's right. I am the demonic sword you discarded. It seems you lack self-awareness as a servant." Suddenly, Sig vanished from her presence. Sig sighed in relief, thinking to himself, "Phew. I barely managed to escape from her. I almost fell into her trap." Unexpectedly, Minerva reappeared beside him, questioning, "Whom did you exclude?" Sig was taken aback and stammered, "Why you? This is a dead-end street. How did you?" Minerva interrupted his confusion, explaining, "Are you asking because you truly don't know? This queen is a demonic sword. Wherever you go, I can follow." Sig was shocked by this revelation, realizing he was bound to her. Minerva commented, "It seems you don't believe me, but it doesn't matter. Now that you possess me, you are my servant." Sig confronted her, exclaiming, "Wait. What on earth are you talking about? Me being your servant?" Minerva replied, "Are you asking because you don't understand? It is only natural to become a servant the moment you wield this queen." Sig turned away, sighing, and muttered to himself that he must be going insane. Minerva inquired about his destination. Sig replied, "You too, just go home already. Stop spouting nonsense." With a dismissive hand gesture, he attempted to shoo her away. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted behind him. He glanced back and saw the girl transform into a sword once again. She introduced herself, proclaiming, "The name of this queen is Minerva. Now, behold, this is the true form of this queen." Sig was left bewildered by the transformation. Minerva changed back into the girl, laughing, and declared, "Now, kneel down and show respect to this queen." Frustrated, Sig grabbed Minerva and pulled her along, his anger evident. Minerva pleaded, "Do not mistreat her violently. Listen to me, servant." Sig found himself back before the old man, who remarked, "What happened to the guy who said he would never return?" Sig simply laughed it off. Sig stated, "I am here to deal with the demonic sword." This revelation shocked Minerva, who realized that Sig intended to sell her. The old man extended his hand, demanding the sword. Sig held Minerva protectively in his arms and presented her, saying, "Here it is." A silence fell over the place, and the old man grew angry. Sig proceeded to explain the situation while Minerva trembled with fear. When the old man and Sig looked at Minerva, they noticed tears streaming down her face. She pretended to be Sig's sibling and sobbed, "That's too much, brother. No matter how troublesome I am, you shouldn't try to sell me." Sig retorted, "And no. Hey, don't try to act, it won't work." However, the old man's anger intensified. Minerva continued to pretend, saying, "Don't shout at me, brother." The old man kicked Sig out of the store. Outside the store, Sig was devastated, and Minerva scolded him, saying, "How dare you try to sell this queen? It's 1,000 years too early." Sig replied, "Why on earth are you doing this to me?" Minerva responded, "How many times have I told you? The moment you took hold of this queen, we were destined to be together until the end of your life." This only infuriated Sig further, and he muttered, "Damn it." They continued their journey in a carriage. Sig ate marble candy while thinking, "I really didn't want to come to the city. Tisk, because of her, I can no longer accept quests from the village guild." Meanwhile, Minerva marveled at the view. Sig interrupted the silence, asking, "Hey, let me ask you something. You said you're a demonic sword. How can you change into a person?" Minerva pondered for a moment and replied, "I'm not sure. I'm just able to do it. I'm curious though, how were you able to escape my control even while holding onto this queen?" Sig shrugged and replied, I don't know. I guess I just could. Both of them contemplated the situation but couldn't fully comprehend what had happened. Suddenly, the merchant driving the carriage called out to Sig, saying, Warrior, we have arrived. As they got out of the carriage, the driver thanked Sig for accompanying him. Sig expressed his gratitude, saying, I'm truly grateful you gave me a free ride. The merchant handed Sig an envelope with a seal and said, Perhaps, if you're interested in an escort quest, please stop by a place called Rose Top. The merchant departed, leaving Sig to continue with his vow. Minerva chastised him, saying, You fool, you're going to hit your head on the ground. Why don't you do the same to this queen who owns you? An air of gloom surrounded them as Sig muttered, What a nuisance. Sig began walking, telling Minerva, If you don't like it, go on your own. However, Minerva persisted and followed him. Eventually, they arrived at Epilim, the largest city in the Cade province. Minerva marveled at the sight of the people, exclaiming, Humans have also developed quite a bit. Sig teased her, saying, You look like a hillbilly, so stop gawking. Their banter and annoyance with each other continued. They gazed upon a tall building, which turned out to be the Adventurers' Guild. Sig declared, We have arrived. Minerva inquired, Is this your destination? You're not planning to sell this queen again, are you? Sig replied incredulously, Are you crazy? What are you talking about? Minerva chuckled and said, Hee hee, you're not that stupid, though. Standing before the guild's door, Sig appeared unusually nervous. Minerva asked, You seem uncharacteristically nervous. What kind of plan do you have? Sig took a deep breath, opened the door, and walked in with confidence. The receptionist warmly welcomed them. Sig stated, I'd like to accept a quest. The receptionist responded, Let me check your identity first. Please present your identification card. Sig handed over his ID, and the receptionist's eyes widened in shock. She exclaimed, Signature Jagger. The adventurers inside the guild overheard and were also surprised, exclaiming, It's Signature Jagger, the Warrior of Doom. Sig's mood darkened as his true identity was revealed, and Minerva couldn't help but almost burst into laughter upon hearing the title, Warrior of Doom. Sig turned to the receptionist and demanded, Just give me a list of quests. The receptionist obliged, handing over the quest list, while Minerva chuckled to herself. As Sig perused the quests, an adventurer nearby whispered, Is he really the Warrior of Doom? Another adventurer chimed in, What happened? I haven't seen him in a while. Sig selected the quests he wished to undertake, and before the receptionist could mention that they were high-ranked requests, Sig interrupted, saying, It's all right, I'll take them. The receptionist handed him the letter of introduction, and they left the Adventurers' Guild. The murmurs among the adventurers continued, with whispers spreading, The Warrior of Doom assassinated the worst duke. Another voice added, The Warrior of Doom is one of the 5 great warriors. Sig sighed in exasperation and muttered, That's why I didn't want to come to the city. Minerva continued to tease him, laughing about the Warrior of Doom reputation. When Sig told her to stop laughing, referring to her as a lump of steel, Minerva burst into uncontrollable laughter. As they walked through the forest, Minerva expressed disappointment, saying, To think that the quest you got was just this. You have no courage, Warrior of Doom. Sig retorted, I told you not to call me that. Minerva continued to tease him, repeating, Sure thing, Warrior of Doom. Just 10 minutes before, they had been speaking with a noblewoman who had requested a quest at the Adventurers' Guild. The woman expressed gratitude, saying, Thank you so much for coming. I was worried that there was no news for a while after the quest was posted. While Sig conversed with the noblewoman, Minerva amused herself by fooling around in the house. The noblewoman explained, Yes, I can only entrust it to you now. Sig reassured her, Don't worry. I will find your cat no matter what. Minerva was amazed by a large painting in the house, depicting the noblewoman with her cat. As they left the noblewoman's house to embark on the quest, Sig scolded Minerva, hitting her on the head for her silliness inside the house. Sig remarked, To think they closed down the whole park just for a cat. Minerva retorted, To think a warrior would be out looking for a cat. This infuriated Sig, and he scolded Minerva, saying, Be quiet. It's all because of you. Minerva asked, Why are you putting the blame on me? Sig explained, Because you broke my sword. How am I supposed to do the quest without a weapon? Minerva said, What do you mean you don't have a sword? This confused Sig, and Minerva clarified, Don't you have this queen? Think about it carefully. If you can wield me without any conditions, wouldn't you be the strongest? Sig pondered her words, imagining himself wielding Minerva with a surge of purple aura emanating from the sword. However, Sig abruptly hit Minerva on her forehead and scolded her, saying, "A child acting like that." He walked away while Minerva teared up, continuing to tease him, saying, "Slit eyes. Candy addict, warrior of doom." Suddenly, Sig noticed that it was unusually quiet, even for a closed park. The usual sounds of birds chirping were absent. He wondered if there was a demonic beast taking over the area. In that moment, a tiger appeared swiftly beside Sig, ready to strike him with its claws. As the tiger attacked, a massive explosion erupted, shattering the ground. Sig managed to save Minerva and avoid the saber-toothed tiger's attack. Upon closer inspection, Sig realized that the supposed cat they were searching for was actually a saber-toothed tiger. He found it amusing that such a dangerous creature was referred to as a cat. This explains why a quest to look for a cat is ranked A. Minerva warned Sig that they were in a dangerous situation. Sig released his grip on Minerva, causing her to fall to the ground. Frustrated, Minerva exclaimed, "Hey, you jerk. Are you going to keep doing this?" Sig picked up a twig and instructed Minerva, "Go stand in the back. Don't dawdle here and get hurt." Minerva retorted, "Is that the problem right now? Behind you." The saber-toothed tiger lunged at Sig, but Sig skillfully defended himself by attacking the tiger's mouth with the twig. Minerva was amazed as Sig continuously launched a series of attacks using only the twig. Eventually, the saber-toothed tiger was defeated and weakened. Sig found it strange that the saber-toothed tiger, known for its intelligence, continued to fight even after sensing the difference in their power. Suddenly, 3 tiger cubs appeared, clinging to their mother. The tiger remained wary of Sig. Sig reassured the tiger, saying, "Calm down. I have no intention of harming you guys. I came because Lady Marquis was worried about you." Surprisingly, the tiger approached Sig closely and licked his face. Sig remarked, "I can tell why it's called a kitty cat." He lay down under the weight of the tiger. The scene shifted to the noblewoman's house, where the tiger had returned. The noblewoman scolded the tiger, saying, "You troublemaker. You made me worried." The tiger's cubs clung to her, and they appeared adorable. The noblewoman thanked Sig for completing the quest and referred to him as the warrior of doom, much to Minerva's continued annoyance. Sig grabbed Minerva's face to silence her and spoke to the noblewoman, saying, "So you knew. Even though I specifically traveled to the countryside to hide my name." The noblewoman explained that it was hard for nobles to forget such a name. She then asked about the relationship between Sig and Minerva. Sig and Minerva both answered simultaneously, but their answers were different. Sig referred to them as strangers, while Minerva claimed that Sig was her servant. This triggered Sig's anger, and he retorted, "Who are you calling a servant?" "Huh," Minerva replied, "What, a stranger? You servant." The noblewoman commented that their relationship seemed peculiar. Sig then asked the noblewoman why she named the tiger, Kitty Cat. The noblewoman replied, "When I first met this child, I really thought it was a cat. Even now, it's still cute as a kitten to me. But others probably don't see it the same way. It probably ran away from the house because of that. She was probably thinking that she did not belong here. So I would like to take this chance to tell you. I want to send this child back to her original home." Sig remarked, "If you're talking about the saber-toothed tiger's home." The noblewoman confirmed, "Yes, it's the place you're thinking of. The area farthest east, Sigmere." As Sig, Minerva, and the tiger cubs walked through the city of Epilim, something caught the attention of the people. Sig found it distracting, but Minerva and the tiger cubs seemed amused by the humans' fascination with them. Some people even expressed their desire to take one of the cubs' homes. Minerva laughed and commented, "Lowly humans. They can't take their eyes off my beauty." Kitty Cat, the mother tiger, smirked in disagreement. Sig told Minerva, "You're lucky." Confused, Minerva asked, "What do you mean?" Sig replied, "I wish I could be like you, with no thoughts in my head." Minerva became infuriated by his comment. Despite her anger, she asked, "By the way, where are you going now? You said you were going to Sigmere or something, right?" Sig explained that he had to make a stop at a certain place. Curious, Minerva asked, "Where are you going?" Sig replied, "I'm going to buy a sword. Is that okay?" Suddenly, Minerva grabbed Sig's clothes and shivered. Angry, she shouted, "Is it the wind? This damn Sig." They arrived at the epilim branch of the weapon vest store. The man at the store welcomed them and asked how he could assist them. Minerva glanced at the swords on display and thought that they were all trash. Sig informed the man, "I'd like to buy a sword, a high-quality one." The man judged Sig, thinking that he didn't seem capable of affording a famous sword. Minerva continued sulking, and Sig asked her how long she would keep it up. The man suggested, "Why don't you take a look around the store? Our supplies are also excellent. There are no installment plans." Sig agreed, saying, "Well, let's just take a look. I'll have to decide whether to buy it or not." The man asked them to follow him. Kitty Cat seemed wary of the man and the man also wary of Sig. Minerva said that guy is really strange. No matter how good human swords are. Sig patted her saying you're still better. This makes her blushed. They walked to the luxury department of the store. Inside, there was a wide variety of different kinds of swords, showcasing the store's extensive selection. The man at the store recommended a sword called the Red Dragon, stating that it would be perfect for hunting non-standard grade monsters. He showed them a red and gold sword with a graceful curve. The man explained that it was the sword of the legendary hero, Arenas Gunfield, who had slain numerous dragons single-handedly. The blade was made from the spine of a red dragon, giving it its red color. The man was in awe of the sword's beauty and was visibly shivering with excitement. Sig asked about the price of the sword, realizing that he was in the largest weapon shop on the continent. The man mentioned the price, which shocked Sig. He simply said, "Next, please." The man then showed Sig another sword called the White Sword Sniper, crafted by the master blacksmith Nabaran. However, Sig's attention was drawn to another sword on display. Curious, Sig asked about that particular sword. The man explained that it was a new item recently received, discovered by Sir Carl, one of the 5 warriors. The sword had not been officially named or priced yet. Ignoring the man's warning not to touch the merchandise, Sig proceeded to touch the sword. The man, taken aback by Sig's audacity, exclaimed, "Customer, you can't just touch the merchandise." Despite the man's protest, Sig was determined and had found a sword that truly intrigued him. A white magical aura resembling ice appeared, causing Sig to smile. He made up his mind and declared, "I'll buy this sword." After buying the sword, Sig and his companions, including Minerva, found themselves in the slums and decided to stay at an inn. Minerva expressed her dissatisfaction, complaining about having to sleep in such a place. Sig, while fondling his new sword, reminded her that he had spent all his money on the purchase and suggested that if she didn't like it, she could sleep outside. He pointed out that Kitty Cat, the tiger, was sleeping just fine. Minerva, feeling hurt and betrayed, retorted, "Is it not enough that you cheated on me with another sword, but you're also going to put me up in this shabby place?" Sig, lying down with his new sword, made a dismissive gesture and told Minerva to be quiet, as they were in the slums and needed to rest. At midnight, as the full moon peeked out from behind the clouds, Minerva, Kitty Cat, and her cubs were fast asleep. However, Sig was awakened by a sound. He got up and he got out of bed. He left the room. He climbed upstairs and reached the rooftop, where he saw a girl standing, surrounded by ice, and gazing at the moon. Sig called out to her, trying to get her attention. He said, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, but crying won't solve your problems." Tears streaming down her face, the girl asked Sig, "You're not going to die, right?" Confused by her question, Sig replied, "What is that supposed to mean?" The girl explained, "Everyone I've been with has died. Even the kind ones, even the brave ones. I didn't want to be with anyone anymore, but..." Suddenly, it dawned on Sig that she was the embodiment of his new sword. The girl introduced herself as Sui, the cursed sword bound to him. Sui, known as the Sword of Sorrow, had the power to control ice and cold. It amplified the user's sorrow and drove them towards thoughts of suicide. The dew that collected on the blade of the sword resembled tears, symbolizing the pain it brought. As Sig and Sui conversed on the rooftop, Sig came to the realization that the sword he had purchased at Nephilim was indeed Sui, and that all the previous wielders of the sword had met tragic ends through suicide. Frustrated, Sig exclaimed, "Damn it." Sui apologized, explaining that she had resolved not to be contracted again but had been compelled by an unknown power. Sig calmed her down, reassuring her that he would not meet the same fate and promising that he would not die because of her. Touched by Sig's words, Sui burst into tears and recalled a girl's prophecy about him meeting a partner he would want to spend the rest of his life with. Looking at Sig with passion, she believed she had found that person. Sui then politely asked for Sig's name. Sig introduced himself as Sig, short for Signature Jagger. Sui smiled and replied, "Okay, Sir Sig." Just then, Minerva arrived on the rooftop, prompted by the sudden drop in temperature in their room. She noticed Sui and remarked that she hadn't seen her before. Sui introduced herself to Minerva, and Minerva approached her to get a closer look. Curious, Sui asked Minerva what she was doing. In a sinister tone, Minerva revealed her knowledge of Sui being a demonic sword and declared her intention to exact a price for attempting to steal someone's servant. Unexpectedly, Sig appeared behind Minerva and grabbed her head to stop her. Minerva protested, calling Sig a problem too. Minerva said, "You already have a demonic sword." "Me." Sig urged Minerva to calm down and listen, reminding her that as his sister, she should act respectfully. This revelation confused Minerva, who questioned the notion of being a sister and acting respectfully. With a cute voice, Sui pleaded, "Please, take care of me, Sister Minerva." Minerva was amazed by the request, and a star seemed to twinkle in her eyes. She demanded that Sui call her sister once more, to which Sui obediently responded, "Sister Minerva." The next morning, as the sun rose over the mountains, Minerva was awestruck by being addressed as sister, while Sui appeared tired. Sig asked if they were ready to go, and Minerva inquired about their destination. Suddenly Sui dissipated and transformed back into a sword. Sig grabbed the handle and placed her on his shoulder. He stated that he was going to buy a sword. The scene shifted to the epilim branch of the Weapon Best store. Sig kicked open the door, startling the man at the store, who asked him what the meaning of this was. Disregarding the question, Sig demanded to see the owner. The man dismissed Sig as crazy and stated that he probably didn't even know where he was. He commanded a giant man to deal with Sig, and the giant stepped forward and he holed Sig in the head, saying, "Hey, you hear that? Get lost while I'm speaking nice." But before he could finish speaking, Sig punched the giant in the face, easily defeating him. Sig confronted the man, criticizing his lack of understanding of human language and reiterating his request to see the store owner. He approached the man and pointed his sword at his neck, asking if he was going to call him. The man, realizing the seriousness of the situation, exclaimed that Sig wouldn't get away with this and questioned if he knew who he was. Suddenly, an old man shouted for them to stop. It was the man's father and the owner of the store. The old man asked what the commotion was about, and his son attempted to say that it was nothing and urged him to go, but the father silenced him and insisted he kept quiet. The old man turned to Sig, realizing that the issue involved him. Sig asked if he was the owner of the store, to which the old man confirmed. However, he requested a reason for Sig's actions, warning that there would be a price to pay if he wasn't satisfied with the answer. Sig showed Sui the sword emitting an icy aura, and introduced himself as Signature Jagger, the warrior of doom. Sig stabbed the ground with the sword, causing ice to appear on the ground and ceiling. He reasoned that if Weapon Best, the world's best weapons shop, had sold a demonic sword to a warrior like himself, it would have brought disaster to the shop. Therefore, he believed he deserved compensation. The man tried to reason that Warrior Carr had vouched for the sword, but Sig dismissed it. He stated that he didn't want to make a big deal out of it but would still be taking compensation. Sig cornered the man and he stated that he will be taking an arm for compensation. He took a stance to swing the sword, and when he was about to strike the man, his father protects him. Sig halted his attack, and the old man declared that it was the fault of a father who hadn't raised his child properly, offering his own arm as compensation instead. Sig sighed and said it's a tear-jerking fatherly love. He then proposed the red dragon sword as compensation instead. As Sig left with the red dragon sword, the man apologized to his father, expressing his desire to be of help. However, his father didn't respond and walked away, calling him a useless bastard. Infuriated, the man exclaimed Sig's name, expressing his anger. Red dragon sword acquired. Sig and Sui continued walking, and Sui asked if Sig had really planned on taking the man's arm. Sig responded, "I'm not some crazy person. What am I going to do with someone's arm?" Sui said, "Then since the beginning, you were aiming for that sword." Sui questioned why Sig had gone so far, and he explained that it was his life's motto: gratitude twofold, resentment tenfold. Back at the inn, Minerva was waiting for them, yawning. The red dragon sword was a legendary weapon known for slaying many dragons. It was previously used by the Dragon Slayer Arenas Greenfield and played a crucial role in defending the Carbon Holy Kingdom against greedy dragons. It was considered a national treasure among humanoids. At the Rose Cathedral, Minerva expressed her disgust towards Sig, commenting on how he always seemed to be frowning. Sig, on the other hand, was happily admiring his new sword, the Red Dragon. Minerva remarked that if someone saw him, they might think he had found his soulmate. Sig retorted that it was just a normal sword, unlike someone else, provoking Minerva's anger. She replied that he never knew, as it could be another demonic sword. Sig replied, "Your jealousy is unbecoming. There was no thing wrong with it for 500 years. While Sig and Minerva argued, Sui appeared serious and jealous, and even Kitty Cat sensed it. Suddenly, Sui called out to Sig, and he turned to face her. Sui was pouting and had teary eyes. She accused Sig of being mean and only paying attention to the sword lately. Sig tried to explain that he was simply ensuring that it was a normal sword, but Sui shouted that he was making excuses. Sui said, "Before, you were." Suddenly Sig somehow felt like a deja vu. Sui shouted, "Before, you were fondling me so passionately." Sig was shocked while the word fondled echoed in his mind. The crowd doing the crowd thing again as they heard Sui shouted. The crowd overheard Sui's outburst and reacted in confusion. One man questioned what he had just heard, and another man said, "Passionately fondled." Sig warned Sui to stop, threatening to scold her if she continued. Sui, still sulking, responded that it was Sir Sig's fault this time. Sig patted Sui's head and admitted that it was indeed his fault, asking for her forgiveness. Sui was delighted and replied that she would forgive him, but only this time. Suddenly, someone called out to Sig, addressing him as Signature Jagger. It was a bald man introducing himself as Mark Blentier. He informed Sig that they would be working together on a trade escort quest and expressed his honor in working with the Warrior of Doom. Sig shook Mark's hand and replied that it was nothing. Sig suspected that the trading company must have leaked his identity. When Mark looked at Sig's party, he commented that it was a peculiar group for a warrior's party. Mark greeted the group, specifically addressing the ladies. Minerva responded coldly, telling him not to strike up a conversation with her, referring to him as a lowly human. However, Minerva then noticed the shining baldness of Mark's head and became amazed by it. The group prepared to depart, and the carriage was ready. Inside the carriage, Minerva engaged Sig in a conversation, expressing her boredom and commenting on how peaceful the human world seemed. Sig disagreed, stating that it only showed the difference in how humans and demons fought. Suddenly, Sig became angry, leaving Sui confused. Minerva, in her mischievous nature, began playing with Mark's bald head, trying to put her hair on his head. Sig grew even more furious at her antics, and Minerva called out to Mark for protection, causing chaos inside the carriage. As they continued their journey, night fell, and they decided to make a fire using the surrounding woods. Sig apologized to Mark for the trouble they had caused him. Mark responded that it was all right and that he was used to it. Mark turned his gaze towards Minerva and remarked that it might be better for her to be as she was, implying that her mischievousness brought them joy and enthusiasm. Sig expressed his uncertainty about it, but Mark assured him that he would find out later. Mark then changed the topic, mentioning the fate of their meeting. He brought out a bottle of alcohol in a glass, offering it to Sig. Sig recognized it as a rare honey alcohol sold only in the Carbon Holy Kingdom. It was said that possessing this alcohol would ensure survival even if captured by a dragon. Sig initially refused, but Mark insisted, forcing him to take a sip. Mark mentioned that they needed a side dish but believed that Sir Warrior's story would be enough to accompany the alcohol. Sig reflected on his past and realized he had a story to share. He recounted how he lost his father and began his journey as a warrior at the age of 15. He had been taken in by people who seemed kind, but he later discovered that they were part of a group known as the Hunting Dogs. These individuals captured and sold descendants of warriors to Duke Parthenon. Curious about how Sig managed to survive such a situation, Mark asked him for details. The look in Sig's eyes turned serious, hinting that he anticipated what would come next. Just then, Minerva approached them, questioning the intriguing conversation they were having and demanding Sig's attention. Minerva noticed the sweet aroma emanating from the glass Sig held. Sig asked Minerva if she wanted to try the drink. Initially intrigued, Minerva's expression suddenly changed, accusing Sig of finally taking on the role of a servant. Sig questioned if he should retrieve the glass, but Minerva swiftly took it from his hand and drank the alcohol. Mark attempted to stop her, exclaiming that it was something meant for adults. Recalling Mark's earlier question about survival, Sig revealed that he had been saved by a mercenary on that fateful day. He had learned valuable lessons from the mercenary's actions. As Minerva finished the drink, she let out a satisfied sigh. Sig continued, sharing his beliefs: to repay gratitude twofold and hold resentment tenfold, and to never trust those who approach with smiles. Suddenly, the glass slipped from Minerva's grasp, and she felt weakened, collapse while standing. Fortunately, Sig caught her, but his serious expression revealed that the drink contained a poison meant to debilitate its consumer. Sig asked Mark if he agreed with his assessment, but before Mark could respond, he drew his sword and attacked Sig. However, Sig defended himself, using his red dragon sword to block the assault. Mark inquired when Sig had noticed the poison. With a smile, Sig replied, questioning the obviousness of the question. In a swift motion, Mark leapt to attack Sig from above. Reacting quickly, Sig placed Minerva safely on the ground and stood up to face the oncoming assault. Meanwhile, Mark's subordinates attacked Sig simultaneously. Sig remained focused and serious as he responded to Mark's question. He had noticed the poison from the beginning. Minerva, lying on the ground and unable to move, expressed her resentment towards the situation, proclaiming that she would hold it against them. 4 simultaneous attacks were released to Sig, but he skillfully evaded the impending attack. With a swift movement he avoided them all. Sig's agility allowed him to evade the simultaneous attacks effortlessly, swiftly moving with precision. However, one adversary had been anticipating his next move, but Sig skillfully blocked the attack with his sword and retaliated with a powerful swing. Engaged in battle, Sig found himself surrounded by enemies. Sui called out to Sig, surprising him with her presence amidst the chaotic situation. Sig turned his gaze towards her as she expressed her astonishment at the unfolding events. With determination, Sig pointed his finger at Minerva and ordered Sui to take her and leave the area immediately. Sui, concerned for their safety, offered her assistance, but Sig insisted that he was fine. Gripping his red dragon sword tightly, he assured her that it would all be over soon. One of Mark's subordinates insulted Sig, questioning what he meant by claiming it would be over soon. Sig calmly replied, suggesting that his statement wasn't entirely unfounded. He then challenged the group, asking if it was against their rules to reveal who had hired them. Without hesitation, Sig dashed towards one of the men, slicing through his body with a swift and powerful strike. 2 more adversaries attacked Sig simultaneously, and although he managed to block their strikes, the force pushed him backward, creating some distance between them. Sig remained cautious, aware of the situation. Suddenly, a bright light emanated from above, catching Sig's attention. Looking up, he saw Mark wielding his massive sword, enveloped in a blue aura. Mark unleashed his devastating attack, known as Meteor Strike, with the immense power of his sword. Sig prepared himself for the incoming assault. However, instead of directly hitting Sig, the attack struck the ground, causing a massive explosion akin to a nuclear bomb, resulting in the crumbling of the terrain. In the next moment, Sig appeared to be alive but on one knee, using his sword as support. Suddenly, slashes from both sides approached him, and he swiftly leapt to evade them. However, another strike followed, hitting him and sending him crashing into the ground. Mark wore a smile of satisfaction, acknowledging Sig's initial doubts, but expressing disappointment, referring to him as the Warrior of Doom. Despite the dire situation, Sig managed to rise to his feet, and his red dragon sword seemed to absorb energy. Sig unleashed his skill, the Jagger Vision. As one of the men attacked him with a powerful slash, Sig employed his flying snake greedy frog technique, skillfully blocking the attack. The man, struck by a surge of golden energy from Sig's sword, was engulfed in flames. 3 men, including Mark, advanced towards Sig, determined to overwhelm him. The battle raged on, with Sig facing his adversaries head-on, his resolve unwavering. Sig, readying his sword, swiftly slashed the man in front of him, but the second man managed to parry Sig's attack. While Sig was engaged in combat with Mark's subordinate, Mark taunted him, questioning if he had been hiding his true skills and implying that Sig's reputation as a warrior was not unfounded. Mark declared that Sig would have to pay for his audacity. Mark approached his subordinate, emanating a surging energy of blue and red aura, and unleashed his skill, Destroyer, with a powerful overhead swing. The released energy was so potent that even the ground crumbled under its might. However, Sig remained confident. He activated his Jagger Vision skill once more, followed by another skill known as Explosive Step. A golden aura enveloped his feet as he dashed toward the impending Destroyer attack. He faced tremendous energy, using his hand as a shield to dissipate the force. A tremendous explosion ensued. Mark was patiently waiting for the outcome, and amidst the smoke and surging electrical energy, Sig emerged, charging towards Mark. Mark, astonished by Sig's audacity, exclaimed, calling him a crazy bastard for using his own arm as a shield. While Sig closed in on Mark, the latter attempted to block the attack with his sword, but the force behind Sig's strike shattered Mark's massive sword, causing him to release his grip and the sword flew away. Mark kneels before Sig. It was evident that Sig had emerged as the victor of the battle. Pointing his sword at Mark's neck, Sig declared that it was time to end it. However, Mark pleaded for his life, revealing that Kevin Argorin of Weapon Best had ordered the assassination attempt on Sig. Sig already knew this information, explaining that as soon as they had left Epilim, an assassin had been hired. Sig deduced that there was only one place that harbored such intense animosity recently. He chastised Mark, stating that he should have concealed his involvement from the beginning. Without mercy, Sig killed Mark and walked away from the scene. Suddenly, Sui arrived, calling out to him. Sig, weakened and smiling, told Sui that it was over. Sui questioned why Sig hadn't utilized her during the battle, wondering if it was because she was a demonic sword and if Sig didn't trust her. Sui's tears flowed as she expressed her concerns. Sig replied, reminding Sui of her own words, that he hoped no one would die because of her. He reassured her, saying, so, you don't worry. However, Sig's strength waned, and he collapsed, falling forward to the ground, and losing consciousness. In the next scene, Sig found himself lying in a bed. He woke up and slowly got up, examining his bandaged body. Wondering who had moved him and realizing that he was healed, Sig pondered the situation. Suddenly, a man approached him, holding a glass of coffee, and greeted him, remarking that it had been a long time, referring to Sig as the Warrior of Doom. The man was Prince Piaz Amelia, the second prince of the Kingdom of Amelia.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button for more content. Feel free to leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts or suggestions. If you want to stay updated on all our latest uploads, click the notification bell icon. And hey, why not check out some of our other videos popping up on the screen right now? If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It really means a lot. Peace.